Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Spirit Daughter podcast. I'm Jill Winterstein, aka Spirit Daughter, and today we're deep diving into one of the questions I'm asked the most, and that's how to tell the difference between intuition and anxiety. I get this question all the time in DMs, in emails, and workshops. People are always wanting to know, how do I tell the difference, especially when it comes to our intuition telling us not to do something. So how do we discern? Is that a real intuitive hit, or is that just anxiety or fear keeping us away from something because of some pattern or some old story we're replaying? So today we're going to talk about some key differences between intuition and anxiety and how you can tell the difference in your own life. So I want to give you some tools to use to start discerning the difference. Let's first start by validating why this is so hard. Yes, it is very difficult for everybody, no matter who you are, whether you're a meditator or a mom or somebody in marketing or somebody who knows nothing about intuition. It is hard for everyone to discern between intuition and anxiety. And like I said, it's one of my most asked questions over the 10 years that I've had Spirit Daughter. So let's get into why it is so different. They both live in the body. Intuition and anxiety are physical sensations. They use similar channels to bring information to you. And oftentimes they live in the gut. So we always think about intuition as gut instinct. And that's also where we tend to fear anxiety. They're both pre-verbal, meaning they exist before the logical mind takes over. And so they come to us from this place of, it feels almost like a void where there are no words. There's just feelings. And so we can't always put labels on them. And so they live as sensations in the body. And look, our brain, our mind is programmed to scan for threats. That's one of the things that we've evolved to do, and how we've evolved to be here in the first place is we're always scanning for threats of some sort to keep us safe. And so intuition can tell you where threats are, and so can anxiety. And so you can see how these two over evolution use the same channels. They both live in the body, and they feel very similar. Their textures are very similar, but they're also very different. So let's talk about some key differences. First of all, they do feel different. When we get into the subtlety, and this is where meditation and nervous system regulation work can really help, because at first, on surface level, when we're going through our day, when we're maybe not connected to our body, they're going to feel very similar. We're going to get a hit and we're going to say, okay, oh my gosh, that's my intuition. It's telling me not to do something, or anxiety will start spiraling. When we get into the more subtle sensations of each, we can feel how they are different in our body. So intuition feels grounded. It feels solid. It lives lower in your body. It's steady. It's constant. It also feels expansive. Even when it's leading you away from something, it still feels expansive in your body and in your heart. Even if it's saying, no, don't do that, that no feels expanded and grounded. Anxiety, on the other hand, feels kind of buzzy. It lives higher in the body. It feels like it creates these like spirals or loops where we go round and round and round and round. It feels like it scatters our mind and our energy where we can't quite focus on one thing. So it's the opposite of steady. And it feels contractive. So it feels constrictive and it contracts us. And so when we're leaning into anxiety, we're getting smaller. We're backing away from things. We're not expanding. And we're often spiraling in loops and loops and loops. And so that's another key difference between intuition and anxiety is the timeline. So anxiety will spiral us to the future, to the past, to what if this happens? It will play out old stories. It'll say, don't do that. Remember when this thing happened, or this thing and that thing, and all of this could occur at once. It creates these domino effects for us where all of a sudden one little piece of anxiety turns into, one thing after another as the dominoes just fall. Intuition, on the other hand, lives in the present moment. It lives in the here and now. And so it comes to us and it says, don't do this now, or go here now, or don't trust that person now, or call this person now. It lives in the very here. Like, it is right here with us. It's not going into the future. It's not going into the past. It may reshape the future because of what it's telling us to do in the present, but that's different. Anxiety spirals us forward and back. Intuition keeps us here and grounded. Another key difference between intuition and anxiety, other than how they feel and the timeline, is how they sound. And so I always found this to be really, really interesting. When you're wondering if something is your intuition or anxiety, say it out loud. When it is true, it will actually sound true. It'll have a different substance to the sound. It will sound true to your ears. It will ring true. That's where that saying comes from. And it will sound solid. It will sound like, yes, this is here and now. It's grounded in the present moment. It sounds true. Anxiety, on the other hand, won't sound true. It will sound a little fluttery and floaty. And you'll be like, that doesn't sound grounded at all. It almost sounds like when your voice goes up or down. You're like, where did that come from? Like, that's anxiety. That's how anxiety sounds. So when in doubt, if you're trying to choose between something, or you're trying to decide, is my intuition telling me this or my anxiety, say it out loud. Intuition will always sound true. It will always feel grounded in your body. And it will always keep you here in the present moment, and it will always feel expansive. And I think that's really important to remember about intuition, is it feels expansive. Another key difference is to watch what happens after. So when we act from our anxiety, usually we stop doing something, we get smaller, we might go into a loop. Nothing actually changes. We kind of just continue spiraling. The energy stays the same. Our life doesn't change in any direction. When we act from intuition, things change. Something changes. We take an actionable step. It tells us what to do. It tells us how to move forward. It tells us how to take aligned action, which I'm actually going to do an entire episode on aligned action versus forced action, because that's another question I get a ton. But it tells us to take aligned action. Aligned action comes from your intuition. So oftentimes when we're setting intentions or visualizing, we stop there and we're like, okay, let me just visualize what's going to happen. And that's going to be enough to make it happen, to materialize it. But most of us know we have to take action, and we want that action aligned with our intuition. And so intuition can move us forward in our manifestations through aligned action. And it will sound true. It will feel grounded in your body. It will tell you exactly what to do. So intuition is specific. That's another key difference. When it tells you to do something, it is crystal clear. There are no questions. Anxiety is vague. It's just like, oh, this awful thing could happen. It's not very specific. Intuition is like, this is exactly what's going to happen. This is exactly what you need to do. It tells you where and when to take action in your life, and it lives in the present moment. And like I said, it lives lower in your body. So you can actually feel it in your solar plexus. You can feel it in your sacral chakra. Or anxiety kind of lives in this buzziness where you're like, oh, what's going on? And it feels different, has this different quality. So those are the main key differences to really look for with intuition and anxiety. And again, if you're really questioning, say it. Intuition will sound true. It will be steady. It does not stop, right? Intuition will wake you up in the middle of the night and it says the same thing over and over and over again. Anxiety says 10, 20, 100 different things, right? Something bad could happen. It could be this thing and that thing or that thing or that thing, right? That's anxiety. And you can even hear the quality of my voice as it kind of goes up. You feel that buzzy energy, right? So it's vague and it spirals and it puts you in these repeat loops, and it doesn't really tell you what to do. It tells you what to maybe be afraid of. It tells you what if this happens, maybe I should do this, but it actually doesn't really tell you what to do. It's just giving you a ton of information and ideas that's not really grounded in your power and in who you are. Intuition will often give you one thing specific. It's grounded. It feels grounded. It sounds grounded. It sounds steady. It expands you versus contracts you. And it just feels right. So it will be a resounding yes to your entire body, right? Like I said, these things live in our body. And so when we follow our intuition, our entire body says yes. It's a full body yes. So those are some of the key differences between intuition and anxiety. Now, what are some of the tools that can help you distinguish and work with intuition in your own life to really trust it? Because that's one of the things I've found in living from my intuition for many years is it took me a long time to trust it. And so how do we trust it? Because oftentimes intuition doesn't have logic. It doesn't have spreadsheets attached to it. It doesn't have like pros and cons list or this is why this should happen. It doesn't have proof. It doesn't have strategies attached to it. It just shows up and says, hey, do this now. And I'm not going to stop until you listen to me. And it often has no guarantee. And that's the thing about intuition. We're like, how do I know what's actually going to happen if I follow it? And the key is you don't. You don't know what's going to happen when you follow your intuition. You just need to follow it. And so how do we start building this trust? So that's practice one with intuition is start building the trust in small increments, in small decisions. So I like to think of this as like, what am I going to wear today? What food am I going to eat? So instead of like overthinking, I go in your closet and just be like, oh, my intuition is telling me to wear a red shirt. I have no idea why, but I'm going to follow that. And maybe your intuition led you to the red shirt because that's what you needed because you were filming something and that was the perfect thing to wear, in the room that you were filming in, like just to kind of play off where I am now. Not that I'm in a red shirt, but that probably would have been a good idea. But small decisions, right? Trust builds with our intuition over small decisions. Open up the fridge. Should I have a salad today or should I have a sandwich? Small decisions. What coffee shop should I go to? When you're first starting to use your intuition, it's like a muscle. And you wouldn't want to just like pick up a 50-pound weight, right? If you were starting to work out, you would start with 3 or 5 pounds. So intuition is the same way. You wouldn't want to just say all of a sudden, I want to start listening to my intuition about if I should move across the country. We want to start in small doses. And then with those small doses, you really want to keep a journal. So a log of every time you followed an intuitive hit. And I like to do this usually at the end of the day. I like to set some time aside before bed, think about my day and say, okay, where did I follow my intuition? And was it right? Was it wrong? Where did I not follow my intuition and I should have? That's always a big one. I found that that's like the most journal entries for me is noticing like, oh, my intuition told me to do this and I didn't, and it was right. And there can be, I will say, some shame and regret that comes up with that. You need to let that judgment go of yourself. So if your intuition came up during the day and you didn't follow it and it was right, just acknowledge, use that awareness and knowledge to build trust in your intuition rather than like send you into a downward spiral of shame or judgment. That's not what we're trying to do here. But you want to keep a log, big decisions, little decisions. I follow my intuition. This is how it felt. This is how it showed up. This is how it sounded. I felt expanded. You want to like write all those qualities down because how your intuition shows up for you might be different for me or somebody else. So you want to start noting down like, oh, it felt this way. I felt expanded. I felt it in my heart. My third eye started tingling a little bit. Something rang in my ear fear, right? All of these can be signs of intuitive hits. So you want to really start keeping an intuition journal. You don't have to do this your whole life, but when you're first starting out, really honing in on your intuition. Like, say you've decided, hey, logic is not working for me anymore. I want to live my life by my intuition because I really know that my power is in my intuition, because that's where I'm most connected to my soul, my energy, the reason I'm here this lifetime. Start keeping a journal. Start writing down every time you listen to your intuition and what happens. Give yourself proof so that when the harder decisions come up, like switching jobs or getting into a relationship or pursuing a relationship or moving across the country, you can trust your intuition. You know what it feels like. You know how it sounds. It could come up and it can say something, and it might say, no, don't do that. And you'll understand that that no is not from fear or anxiety or self-doubt. That no is from a grounded place that's connected to your higher self, right? Because intuition ultimately is connected to our higher self, connected to the universe. It has all the information we would ever need about any decision. We have all of the answers within us. And that's really, really important to remember, because that's your power, right? That's part of owning your power, is owning that fact that you have all the answers within you. You don't need to look outward. And so our intuition connects us to those answers, but we need to learn to trust it. And we also need to learn how to sit with the uncomfortable feelings and often vulnerable feelings of following our intuition. So that's the other part of this, is noticing, oh my gosh, I'm in that space in between where I followed my intuition, but I don't know if it was right. I don't know if what's happening is supposed to be happening. I feel very vulnerable. I feel a little scared. Should I have followed my intuition? It feels uncomfortable at first, right? When we first follow our intuition and we take a big leap, we dive off the cliff, we're free falling. We need to get comfortable with that free fall. And we need to trust that there's always a landing place. There's always a safety net. There's always a way that we can figure out anything, right? If our intuition gets us into a mess, it will get us out, right? Again, there's where that trust comes in again. But we need to get comfortable with that uncomfortableness of the space in between, of that free fall. And so we need to have practices. And so when we do follow our intuition and say we do move across the country or start a podcast or, start a new relationship, there's going to be that moment of doubt. There always is, where we're leaving our old self and entering our new self. We're in that space of becoming, led by our intuition. We need practices that take care of us in that space. We need to say, hey, I'm feeling really vulnerable right now because I took this leap. I'm going to give myself some extra time on my meditation mat. I'm going to book a massage. I'm going to take the afternoon off. I'm going to spend time in nature. So you need self-care practices for when you do follow your intuition and you're in that space in between. But ultimately, following your intuition, and there are different types of intuition. I'm not going to get deep into that right now, but there's different types of intuition. There's heart intuition, gut intuition, creative intuition, visionary intuition. I actually go into all of these in my book, which just launched this week, by the way. More on that in a moment. But there's different types of intuition. And so first, start trusting your intuition. Give yourself tools that help distinguish intuition versus anxiety, right? Stop and think about that. Replay this episode again if you need those differences. But does it expand you? Does it contract you? Does it sound true? Does it feel grounded, right? Does it feel fluttery and like it's spinning in loops, right? That would be anxiety. And so starting to recognize those key differences and starting to trust your intuition, keeping a journal on all your intuitive hits, and giving yourself some self-care practices that really help you take care of yourself when you do follow your intuition, when you take that step and you dive off the cliff. We want you to feel good in your body and held by your own self in that free fall. So I hope this episode has helped answer one of my main questions, how to tell intuition versus anxiety. And I do go deep into this, into my book, Spirit Daughter. Own Your Power, Change Your Life. It's very much about my story, about owning my power and understanding how to follow my intuition. First, hearing my intuition and then following my intuition through some really, really messy, chaotic times, questionable choices. I've lived quite the life. It's all in the book. It's part memoir. It's part prescriptive. It will give you the tools and so much more, and we'll deep dive even more into intuition. So you can buy that book. It's out this week. It just launched. And so you can buy that book wherever you love to buy books. And we'll put all those resources in the show notes. You can find me, as always, on Instagram at Spirit Daughter and on our website, spiritdaughter.com. We also have a book order page, and we also have a place that holds all the show notes, all the episodes, everything you need to know about this podcast is on the spiritdaughter.com website. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.